watching PowerNation.
Coming up, teardown begins on our 85 square body. Mark hands me the cab and the chassis is stripped down.
We rip out the old drivetrain and start mocking up the new. Our suspension needs some attention, and modification begins on our new axle.
And finally, Mark puts it all back together. Not gonna lie, this is gonna be one cool ride.
This has got to be the most iconic design.
Welcome to Music City Trucks. I'm Brandon Burke.
And I'm Mark Christ, and as you can see, we've got our square body Chevy in here. We've been plugging away on it. We're very excited about this project. In fact, last time, Brandon repaired the cab corners. They look really good. Thankfully, that was really the only rust on the whole truck. And we also got the truck torn down a bit, but we want to tear it down even more, and that's what I'm going to work on today.
I'm going to go ahead and start on the bed and do the body work. So I'll do the dusty stuff if you do the greasy stuff.
I'm all about that. So I want to get the cab off of here next so I can get it over to Brandon. In fact, we're going to check on him a little bit later. But before I do that, I want to take as much stuff off of this cab as I can because it's a lot easier to do that now while it's bolted to the chassis. So that's what I'm going to do first. It's hard to do this without this special tool, I'll tell you that. There we go. Sweet. Survived. Okay, finally. Well, that's what I missed. There's a groove right there that the wheels pop out of. I'll know that when I put it back in. That's never been out of there before. Here we go. That was a beast. Get the seat out of here. Oh, look at this. A little treasure trove. What's this? A bill of sale. $2,500. We overpaid for this truck. All right, I'm gonna remove the speaker. Original speakers. Seat belts. And the four-wheel drive shifter bezel so I can get all this floor covering out of the way. There we go. With all of that stuff out of the way, this old dingy, smelly floor mat can be removed. That's disgusting. Looks good. Pretty good. Well, I guarantee it won't go back on as easily as it came off. That's all right. Well, we only had one body cart, so we ordered another one from Summit Racing. So that's what I'm gonna put the cab on here, is this brand new body cart. See how this works out. Body's off. I'm gonna get this thing out to Brandon so he can start prepping it for paint. I'm gonna tear that chassis down. Hey, Brandon.
Yeah.
Brought you something. I got it mostly stripped down for you. There's a couple things left. I don't know what you want to do with the firewall, and you need a hand maybe taking out that glass. I can.
Yeah, I already got this bedside done.
Look at that. That looks
Straight.
Yeah, that looks great.
Guess what?
What?
Zero filler.
Wow.
This is a straight truck.
I was gonna say, maybe you can keep that up.
Mm-hmm.
I got more teardown to do. Good luck.
Yeah, I'll take it from here.
Better you than me. Up next, the drivetrain is removed and teardown is underway. It's always easier to keep as much bolted together as possible. Now this is the part of the truck that I really love. Since Brandon's gonna be working on the body, I'm gonna tackle this. Now I know it doesn't look like much, and that may be in part because of all the mud that's covering it, because we took it to Woolies.
It's always fun playing in the mud.
I love this truck. Other than all of that silt, sand, dirt, and mud caked on this thing, this is actually a very impressive half-ton four-wheel drive truck chassis. Let's start here with the power plant. This is a small block Chevy. Don't get too excited, it's not a 350. This is the 305, and I know that sounds terrible because what do we do with 305s? We make boat anchors out of them, but at 160 horsepower and 235 pound-feet of torque, this thing would get the job done for anybody that had a completely stock half-ton Chevy back in the mid-80s. But where the shining star is on this chassis is the transmission. It's the 700R4, which was really ahead of its time. This is the first automatic transmission in a half-ton Chevy that had an overdrive at a 0.70 to 1, but it also had a 3.06 to 1 first gear, which compensated for that small horsepower output of the engine. Behind that transmission is a 208 chain-driven transfer case, 2-speed, which on its own right is actually a really good transfer case, although it's not really what you're gonna use to do any rock climbing or anything like that. Axles, this thing's got 10 bolts in the front and rear. Again, half-ton truck, nothing wrong with those, but that's not gonna be good enough for us. Now it does have leaf springs in the front and rear, which we are going to retain. Other than that, this truck is gonna change completely. As a matter of fact, the only thing that we're retaining from what you see here is the frame itself, which leads me to what I'm gonna do next. Well, I've got everything sprayed down with some Seafoam Deep Creep. Now all I need to do is start loosening some bolts, tearing this thing down. We're gonna concentrate on getting the drivetrain removed, starting with the drive shafts. Well, this is the part where I would normally pull the exhaust out of here, but it's welded up solid front to back, and I don't feel like fighting it. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and go down and pull the engine transmission transfer case out of here. I'll get the exhaust later. With the carb out of the way, we can bolt on our lift plate. Now it's time to pull the engine, and since there's not a body on here, I can just plug the engine, transmission, and transfer case all out at once. We've got the benefit of having an overhead crane, which allows me to do this job by myself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe. Anytime you got this much weight hanging, things can go wrong real fast. So it's a good idea to not get in between the load and, say, the floor. You may notice I put a rubber glove on the tail housing of the transfer case so I don't make a huge mess with transmission fluid spilling everywhere. It's always easier to keep as much bolted together as possible because, well, just less work. Oh boy, it's a little heavy. Well, at least that wasn't transmission fluid. Once the engine's out, it's time to move on to the axles and suspension. Since I already sprayed these bolts with Deep Creep, they should all come out pretty easily. So far, so good until we get to the leaf spring bolts that are seized inside the bushing sleeves, which require a little more use of the impact. Well, we've just about got this thing torn down to the bare chassis. There's a few things on here I need to remove, but for now, I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about though is these half-ton axles are gone, out of the way, and before you know it, we're gonna have some 1 tons under this thing with a 6-inch lift. Can't wait.
Next, Mark cuts, grinds our new front axle.
All right, well, we're plugging away on our K10 square body here. I went ahead and got the frame stripped down a little bit more, took the fuel tank, fuel lines, and brake lines off. Did leave the steering box on here because we're gonna start mocking up our axles and steering. Starting up front here, you can see we've got our Dana 60 crate axle already in place. It's pretty much where it's gonna be. It might need to move a little bit once we start installing the suspension, but we introduced that a while back. It's just exciting to see it now where it's getting ready to be mated with the truck. Now, to connect those two, we went to Skyjacker for everything that you see here on the floor. Now, this is a direct bolt-in kit. This kit comes with the soft ride springs that Skyjacker makes, as well as the U-bolts, nuts, longer brake hoses, shocks, all of that for both the rear and the front that we're gonna have to switch up a little bit on a couple of components, and that's with what you see here. Basically, just a couple of things, spring perches, larger U-bolts, and retaining plates, all to adapt that half-ton suspension lift kit to our 1-ton axles. We got all of this stuff from Summit Racing. We'll start by installing our front leaf springs. Do some measuring. Then we can measure to get our axles centered left to right. This is where the difficult part is gonna come in. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Where this leaf spring falls, because this frame is so narrow on this truck, with the cast iron part of our center section here, we can't just attach it to the tube. So we gotta figure out how to attach that properly where it's gonna be nice and sturdy and flat and straight, and we can run U-bolts on both sides there. All right, so here's the solution. This is gonna be the perch. This is the right radius for our 3.5-inch tube on our axle. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set that down on the axle, and then I'm just gonna cut this part so it fits over the cast iron part of the center section. Then for the U-bolts, well, this is a 3.5-inch diameter U-bolt that's gonna fit over the smooth part of the axle. And then I got this, I found this on Summit Racing. This is a little over 4-inch diameter here. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna go and cradle the cast iron part. All right, I'm just gonna make some marks here where I wanna grind to. All right, well, I've got that opened up on the inside. It's got some room to move around. I wanna throw this level on here to see how close it is. It's close, I don't wanna go too much though. Get the weight of the leaf on there and start fitting that U-bolt. We'll call that good. Now we've got this little plate Jeremy down in Carcass made. It's got offset holes for these 2 different size U-bolts. Then the passenger side, and it just clamps to the axle tube. All right, well, I mentioned before I was gonna leave the steering box in place, but we decided we're gonna go ahead and upgrade to this PSC box, which is actually really super nice. Some of the features on this box is it's got a really heavy duty PSC cast case. It's got billet covers and end caps. And then another cool feature about this is it's got these -6 ports in case you want to do hydro assist later, or if you're planning your build to have hydro assist right off the bat, this is the steering box for you. In with the new. Well, this is more of a sweeping style for crossover steering. So that's what we're gonna be installing on this truck. It's actually got the arm right here on the crate axle with the boss for the crossover drag link to attach there. And of course, we've got the bosses for the tie rods. Now, all we need to do is connect the dots, and we're gonna do that with the stuff that you see here on the floor that we got from Steer Smarts. Now, they make super heavy duty stuff for late model Jeeps and other late model vehicles as well. This stuff is actually for a late model Jeep with the crate Dana 60 axle. It's really the closest stuff that's on the market to what we're doing to this truck here. But for now, I wanna go ahead and get that tie rod on, then we'll move on to the drag link. Side attach first. That just looks cool. This is a 3.5-inch drop. It's the one I had, so that's what we're starting with. Then we attach the pitman arm to the steering box so we can install the drag link. Just mock up. By the way, this is called Steer Smart's Yeti XD system, in case you're looking for it for your Jeep or whatever. And it looks like the length is pretty close, but the leaf's kind of in the way. Even if I hold it on top, which has to go underneath because of the taper, even if I hold it on top, it's still touching the leaf. So I really need to come up higher here. I really need to space this up. So I need to figure out a different end for this to attach to the top. Maybe with some spacers, a spherical end or something like that, and that would solve that problem. Steer Smarts is working on a solution for us up front, so we're moving on to the rear. Just like the front, we'll get the leaves installed and bolt them in. All right. Axles are in. Coming up, we put it all back together. Get this torque converter installed in the trans. Our mock-up phase is complete. All right, well, we're plugging away on mock-up on our square body Chevy here. We do have a little bit left as far as the axles and suspension goes, and that is the steering linkage. I do have some parts ordered for that, so I'll address that later. For now, I want to go ahead and get the engine, transmission, transfer case all bolted together, drop that in, get that mocked up. Then we'll be ready to just tear this all down, send the frame off to get blasted and painted. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get this flex plate installed. All right, this ARP fastener assembly lube is supposed to go under the head. That way you get it torqued properly. Now thread locker on the threads. Blue. You know, for being somebody that's left-handed, you'd think I could start these bolts a little easier. 85. Let's get this torque converter installed in the trans. Just want to make sure this little O-ring right here is lubed up as it should be. Ooh, that sounded like it. You don't get them in there all the way and you bolt it up, it'll trash your pump. Ah, that was it right there. These ARPs are like the perfect solution. To adapt our transmission to our transfer case, we got this OEM style adapter off the internet since they're not available in the aftermarket. The transfer case gets installed like a glove. Went ahead and separated all of this because I'm working by myself today and it'll be a little easier. Now I know it's all gonna fit together, I just need to get it in here. Because this drivetrain is longer than the original, we're gonna have to move the transmission crossmember back, which is gonna require us to drill new holes in the frame. 6, 7 degrees, I'm okay with that. My dad always told me, always, always, always center punch before you drill, so your drill bit don't walk on you. And always drill a pilot hole. Let the drill do the work. There we go. Well, something else I want to go ahead and fit right now are the headers. I went ahead and got the driver's side installed. It fits really well. We got these from Hooker. These are specifically made for a big block Chevy in a K10 square body like this, so they should fit. Like it. Well, we've got our steering problem solved. Steer Smarts went ahead and sent me a new end here. So this is the one that comes with the kit, and then this is the one they sent. So all things being equal, basically what it does is it flips the ball joint rather than facing up. It faces it down, and it actually comes with this little sleeve that goes in the taper, so it's a top mount kit, they call it. So this goes in the taper. Oh yeah, that's gonna work. And I'll have that adjusted where it'll be upright like that. Oh, I love it. That's a good solution. Well, really all that's left as far as the mock-up phase goes is gonna be my shocks and steering stabilizers, and I'm not gonna bore you with all that. I feel like we accomplished a lot today. And the next time you see this thing, well, the frame is gonna go out, get all cleaned up and painted, and it's gonna be just as shiny and pretty as the rest of this stuff. I can't wait.